So wanted to thank all you guys for coming out. I hope you guys were all here for the keynote this morning. Got a chance to see Aaron show Architect 3 along with Michael. I was going to ask how many of you folks have actually managed to download the Architect 3 preview and start playing with it, but then I realized that I don't think we've actually sent out that link to very many people yet, or it just went out. So by the end of today's session, we're going to show you, you'll have learned enough about Architect 3 to know what to expect when you download it. Hopefully you'll be excited to go download it and give us some great feedback so we can make it a fantastic release. So with me today, as you know, Aaron Conran, the engineering director for Architect. My name is Gil Gordon. I'm the product manager for Architect. And in the audience, we also have a bunch of the actual team members of the Architect team. I think there's a clump over there. If you guys, can you stand up and wave and say hello? So they've come from all over the place, all over the country and Amsterdam. We have our developers, our QA manager, and our user experience designer. So these folks, some of them have given sessions already. There are a lot more sessions that we're giving tomorrow about Architect. We'll put up a slide at the end showing you some of the other sessions about Architect. I highly encourage you guys to go see them so you can learn much more. So briefly, just to tell you what we're going to be seeing today, our agenda is pretty simple. We have Aaron here who's actually been working on Architect since the very first day, so we're going to spend a little bit of time just delving into the history so you can understand how Architect became Architect, which will help frame the next point, which is talking a little bit about how we decide where to go next with Architect. Because we want to give you a little bit of understanding of how we decided to put the feature list into Architect 3 that we've decided to put in. And then we're just going to go straight into the demos. So a couple of these things you've already seen at the keynote. You've seen app templates briefly, and you've seen user extensions and styling very briefly. We're going to go into those in much more detail. And then we're also going to show you how you can do mobile device testing in the cloud. So those are all going to be hands-on demos. Aaron and I are going to alternate. And then we're briefly going to talk about the details of how you can get it and how much it's going to cost and when it'll be available, and those kind of details that you'll need to know. And that should leave us with a decent amount of time for a QA session. If you guys can hold your questions during the demo for the QA session, that should allow us to get through all that content, but we should have a good amount of time at the end. So that is the basic agenda, and I think it's now off to Aaron for a little history tour.
All right, so how do we get here for, oh, this guy doesn't work. All right, so we originally had Designer, and Designer was great at mocking out your UI interfaces, but what we heard from our customers was it's great for a prototyping tool and to develop screenshots to show people what we want to build, but I can't get all the way there and can't build an application. So with that, we created Architect. And with Architect, what we did is introduce a application architecture and MVC. So we improved the inspector to show all of the various pieces of your application and how they relate it, and made it much easier to stay inside of the tool while building your app. So with Architect 2, you could come in, and if you knew the framework well, you could very quickly and easily drag out components, get things started, add event bindings, put in code, and that wasn't something that you could do in Designer 1. With Architect 2.1 and 2.2, we continued improving. So 2.1, we improved the memory footprint a lot. We made it so that, actually that was 2.2, but in 2.2, we made it so that not all components open when you open the project. So originally, when you open the project, everything would open. As of 2.2, when you open the project, only what you had open last will open. We also added tab support to improve navigation. So people had these projects with hundreds of views and hundreds of stores, and they were having difficulty navigating back and forth between them. And so the tabs really help to have what you're currently working on and toggle between them. So that's kind of the brief history. And now I'd like to hand it over to Gil, say how we decided where we're going to go with Architect 3.
Great. So, thanks, Aaron. So, as you can see, Architect has come a long way from its early beginnings. And we're all internally very passionate about it and think that there's a long way that Architect could still go to become an even greater tool. So, does it work? There we go. So we get all these ideas from everywhere, and we try and put them in to help us decide what to do. We try and put them in this framework of the vision that we have for Architect, which is it's going to give you the full power of the frameworks and make them easy to use. And by full power, we really mean that we want you to be able to do anything you can do in the frameworks within Architect. And we also want it to be a great place to learn about the frameworks. That's the ease of use part. So if you're new to any of the Sencha products, we want Architect to be an easy way in so that you can learn good coding practices, learn what all the parts of the frameworks are, and learn how to use them. And so that gets you in, and we'd like it to be powerful enough so that you can stay in it for as long as you need. So we do a lot of listening. So I don't know how many of you guys are probably active on the forums, but on the Architect forum since, I think, late 2011, there have been something like 16,000 messages just on the Architect forums. And a large number of those get responded to directly by the folks on the Architect team. You're talking directly to the developers on the Architect team. So that's one group that we have. And then we have a smaller group, and I'm having a hard time seeing out into the audience, but we have an early access program, which is our small private beta group. And these folks are folks who live in Architect every day. They're designing some gigantic apps, and they use Architect every day, and we give them frequent builds of the Architect that we're working on, and in return they give us great feedback. So those are two groups that you guys have access to that we listen to. We also talk directly to a lot of our customers. We also do the same kind of trying to predict the future that all the analysts do, and we talk to analysts. And we also talk internally. We have a bunch of great folks inside Sencha that we work with. So of course, there's the obvious, we work with the frameworks teams closely, but we also have internally great support, service, and training organizations, and sales organizations that all give us great feedback about what we should be doing in Architect coming forward. So we basically take all this input, we try and filter it through this vision that we have, and we come up with a list of the things that we'd like to do, and we decide, these are the X number of features that we can get done in this time frame, and that's our release. So we think we've come up with a pretty good list for Architect 3. Obviously, there's more things on our list that we want to get to. And so the things that we're showing you today are the first things that we're doing, and there's other stuff that will be coming later. And that sort of gives you the framing.